Hey, this is Tom Schwab, and welcome to the Podcast Interview Marketing Show. Once a month, I'm going to do an episode like this one, where instead of interviewing a guest, I share something that we've been working on inside Interview Valet. Today, well, that's the first one. Now, if you believe the knowledge economy is over, and you're wondering what's next, you may have heard of Creator Capitalists. It's the latest book by the category pirates, Christopher Lochhead, Eddie Yoon, and Katrina Kirsch. And it lays out what comes after the knowledge economy, a world where creators don't just share what they know, they build categories, audiences, and businesses. It's a brilliant book. Highly recommend you read it. But here's the question. It leaves you with, how do I do it? How do I actually implement it? Well, this is the how for Creator Capitalist. It's called From Megaphone to Magnet. And today I want to give you, my audience, the first shot at it. You've got three ways to grab it. You can download the PDF. It's beautifully designed over at podcastinterviewmarketing.com. Number two, you can get it on Amazon if you'd like to have it on Kindle or in print. Or three, just stay right here because for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to read you the whole thing. Consider it the audio version just for podcast listeners. So grab a coffee, settle in. Here we go. From Megaphone to Magnet, The How for Creator Capitalists by Tom Schwab, Chief Evangelist Officer, Interview Valet. This work is a companion to Creator Capitalist. Discover your superpower, design your dream career, and get paid to be you by the category pirates, Christopher Lochhead and Eddie Yoon. Quoted with admiration and attribution. If you haven't read this book, you're missing out. Introduction, the map and the vehicle. Creator Capitalist gives you the map. It's one of the most clear-eyed, well-constructed frameworks for understanding how value is created in this modern AI economy. The authors nail the shift from knowledge worker to creator capitalist, the compounding nature of the four capitals, the death of the generic expert, and the rise of the category designing practitioner. It's the map for today. And this book is the vehicle. Specifically, it's the vehicle most creator capitalists overlook, the one sitting in plain sight, underestimated by almost everyone who could benefit from it the most. That vehicle is podcast interviews. Not hosting a podcast, not being a repetitive guest who shows up, tells their story, and hopes something happens. A strategic podcast interview designed from the first conversation to build the two capitals that compound fastest, reputation capital and relationship capital. In the chapters that follow, you'll see the shift from megaphone to magnet. You'll see why most people broadcast and get ignored with the noise, while others strategically get heard and attract their super consumers. You'll understand the specific mechanics of context, conversation, conversion, and continuity. These are the four moves that separate a podcast appearance that disappears in the noise from one that compounds. You already have the map. Let's get you moving. Chapter 1, The Big Reframe. Most entrepreneurs have been told the same story about how to build visibility. Create content, post consistently, build an audience, wash, rinse, and repeat. It sounds logical. It's also the vast majority of B2B practitioners and thought leaders. A strategy that takes years to produce meaningful results, if it produces them at all. Creator capitalists name the problem precisely. The authors describe what happens when that flywheel gets working. Your visibility grows, and suddenly you're getting invited into podcasts, webinars, and guest articles, reaching even larger audiences. Read that again. Your visibility grows, and suddenly you're getting invited onto podcasts, webinars, and guest articles, reaching even larger audiences. Even in the book Creator Capitalist itself, podcasts are the flywheels that accelerates. So why would you wait to get invited? The megaphone trap. Most entrepreneurs approach visibility the same way. They grab the megaphone and they turn it to 11. They start their own podcast. They launch a newsletter. They post on LinkedIn 3 times a day. They create content, and more content. They shout their message into the void, just hoping that the right people will hear it. The diagnosis of Creator Capitalists is accurate. The authors are right that reputational capital is built on what problems you solve, not on self-promotion. They're right that personal branding, it's become a disease. But here's what happens to smart entrepreneurs who internalize this message. They take the right idea and they apply the wrong strategy. They become a one-person media company. They invest thousands of hours creating for an audience they don't have yet. They build the intellectual infrastructure, the framework, the point of view, the language, but they have no distribution. They have an engine, but they don't have a transmission. The megaphone broadcasts to everyone. The magnet, it attracts the right ones. The magnet alternative. There's a different approach. Instead of broadcasting to everyone, you become a magnet for the right people. The megaphone strategy, well, it creates contents, publishes it on your own channels. Hope your ideal client finds you, and you compete with every other creator making noise in the same space. Then there's the magnet strategy. You show up on podcasts where your ideal clients are already listening. You have a real conversation with a trusted host who's already built the audience that you want to reach. You let the host's credibility transfer to you, building your reputation capital. You let the audience come to you because they heard you think differently about their problem. The megaphone says, "Hey everyone, it's me." The magnet says, "Here's the problem you didn't know you had. And here's how I think about it differently, about solving it." Creator Capitalist is relentless on this distinction. The authors call out practitioners who market themselves instead of the problem they solve. They're spot on. The irony is that most effective vehicle for doing exactly what they recommend, marketing the problem and not yourself, well, that's strategic podcast interviews, placed on shows where your super consumers are already listening. So here's the reframe. You don't need a bigger audience. You need access to the right one. The stage someone else has already built, in the context where trust has already been established. Chapter 2. The 2 capitals that compound. Creator Capitalists describe 4 types of capital that compound for modern entrepreneurs: intellectual, reputation, relationship, and financial. All 4 matter, but 2 of them compound fastest through strategic podcast interviews. Understanding why changes how you think about every appearance you make. Reputation capital, the borrowed stage. Reputation capital is built on trust. Not your trust in yourself, but the market's trust in you. Here's the problem with building reputation capital through your own channels. You're starting from zero. Every newsletter subscriber, every LinkedIn follower, every podcast listener has to decide from scratch whether you're worth their attention. A podcast interview inverts this dynamic entirely. When a host invites you onto their show, they're extending their credibility to you. The audience already trusts the host. The host endorsement is implicit in the invitation. Your appearance is a standard of trust. You don't start from zero. You start from the host's reputation. Here's an example. Craig Cody is a CPA who helps business owners reduce their tax liability. He had a solid body of content, and a list of the 10 most overlooked tax deductions for entrepreneurs. The content, it was great, but his results, well, they were inconsistent. When he stopped presenting it as generic advice and started contextualizing it specifically for the audience on each show he appeared on, something changed. Same 10 tips, different title, different framework, different language, different results. The content didn't change. The context did. Content without context is a gift left unopened. This is the mechanism behind building reputation capital quickly through podcast interviews. It's just not the content you bring, it's the context in which you deliver it. Context amplified by the host questions, framed specifically for the audience that the host knows and has built, delivered in the language of that specific community. Relationship capital, the long game. Relationship capital is the network of people who know you, trust you, and think of you when the right opportunities arise. Most guests treat podcast hosts as gatekeepers, the people to get past in order to reach the audience. The practitioners who build relationship capital, well, they treat hosts as peers, collaborators, and long-term connections. Ari Gelper, the world's #1 authority on trust-based selling and the creator of Unlock the Game, built a global reputation not by chasing clients, but by creating the conditions for trust. He approached every podcast appearance the same way. He approached a sales conversation with genuine curiosity about the host's world, not just the audience's. The result was not just audience reach, it was a network of hosts, each of them a credible voice in their community, who referred him, recommended him, and thought of him when the right opportunities arose. Creator Capitalist describes relationship capital as the most underrated of the four. The authors are spot on, and targeted podcast interviews are among the most efficient ways to build that at scale. The compounding insight. Every strategic podcast interview builds two things simultaneously: reputation capital with the audience and relationship capital with the host. Most guests focus only on the audience. The best ones, well, they cultivate both. Chapter 3, one conversation away. Here's a question most experts never ask. What does my ideal client need to hear? In what context? From whose mouth? To trust me enough to take that next step. Not, what do I want to say? Not, what are my talking points? Or what does this specific person need to hear? In this specific context, to move. The answer to that question determines everything. The shows you pursue, how you frame your expertise, what you offer at the end of the conversation, and what happens after the episode goes live. The right show. Not every podcast is an opportunity. Most are noise. The right show is not the most popular show. It's the show where your super consumers, the people most likely to buy, most likely to refer, most likely to become true believers in your category, the ones that they're already listening to. Barbara Turley runs the Virtual Hub. It's a virtual assistant and operations company. When she was booked on a podcast with a physician-focused audience, she had a choice that most guests never consciously make. She could deliver her standard introduction, the one that worked for general businesses audiences, and hope a few physicians might find it relevant. But she did something different. Barbara tailored her entire introduction just for physicians. Her talking points addressed the specific operational challenges that only physicians face. Her examples, they came from her work with the medical practice. Her language matched the way the physicians described their problem. The results were different too. The same expertise, the same offer, the same hosts, but different context and different outcomes. the right conversation. Creator Capitalist is clear that the creator capitalist does not compete on knowledge alone. They compete on perspective, a point of view that reframes the problem in a way that only they can frame it. The podcast interview is the ideal format for demonstrating this. Not a keynote where you broadcast to an audience that didn't even choose to be there. Not a LinkedIn post where you have 30 seconds to interrupt. A conversation with a trusted host in a format that the audience has opted into on a topic the audience specifically wants to explore. The conversation is where your perspective becomes real. Not a polished version of your book, not the compressed version of your elevator pitch. The alive, responsive, in-the-moment version that emerges when smart hosts ask good questions. This is the version that builds trust. This is the version that converts. A great podcast interview is not a performance. It's proof that you understand the problem that your ideal client is trying to solve and that you think about it differently. The right next step. The conversation is not the destination. It's the beginning. Most guests treat the episode as the deliverable. It's not. The episode is the invitation. The destination is whatever happens next. The call booked, the resource downloaded, the relationship initiated. The highest converting podcast guest design the next step before they record the episode. They know exactly where they want the listener to go, what they want them to feel when they get there, and what they need to find waiting for them. The next step is not a generic website. It's a dedicated welcome page built for the specific audience of the specific show, continuing on the specific conversation the guest started on air. Our client, Paul McManus, author of The $1 Million Producer, focused exclusively on financial advisors. When he appeared on a podcast for professionals, his welcome page didn't say, "Welcome podcast listeners." It said something specific to that show, the host, the audience, and what they had just heard him discuss. His conversion rate was not accidental. We engineered it. One conversation away. Your ideal client is listening to podcasts right now. They are one well-placed, well-framed, well-followed-up conversation away from becoming someone who trusts you enough to take the next step. Chapter 4, the Playbook. The shift from Megaphone to Magnet. It's not just a mindset shift. It's a system shift. Mindsets, they don't produce results. Systems do. And the creator capitalists who build durable reputation and relationship capital through podcast interviews, they're not winging it. They're following a repeatable playbook. The playbook has 4 moves. Move 1, context first. Before you think about what you want to say, think about who you are saying it to. Every podcast has a community. That community has a shared language, shared problems, shared aspirations, and shared frustration. The guest who enters that community as a guest, curious, contextual, specific, well, they're received differently than the guest who enters as a broadcaster. Context first means you reach out to the host before you outline your talking points, before you decide what story to tell. First, you understand the community you're entering. What does this audience already believe? What have they tried that hasn't worked? What would they need to hear to believe that your approach is different? Here's an action. For every show you target, listen to 3 episodes. Not just to learn about the hosts, but to learn about the audience. What questions come up repeatedly? What frustrations surface? What language do guests and hosts use to describe their problem? Move 2, conversation as proof. Your credentials do not build trust. Your thinking does. The podcast conversation is the best opportunity most experts will ever have to demonstrate how they think. Not what they know, but how they think. The difference matters. Anyone can memorize what you know, but no one can replicate how you think. The guests who convert listeners into clients are not the ones who recite their credentials most efficiently or present their keynote. They're the ones who reframe the problem in a way that makes the listener think, wow, I've never heard it described that way, and now I can't see it any other way. That reframe, that's your intellectual capital made visible. It's the proof that you're not just another expert with a framework. You're someone who sees the problem differently, and that difference is exactly what makes you memorable. Here's another action item. Identify your single most powerful reframe. That one idea that, when you share it, makes people stop and say, oh, I never thought about it that way. Build every podcast appearance around demonstrating that reframe, not explaining your credentials or sharing your story. Move 3. Convert the curious. The episode goes live. Listeners hear it. Some of them are interested. What happens next? For most guests, the answer is, well, nothing deliberate. The episode exists. The listeners have to find them. The guest hopes, and hope is not a strategy. The magnetic guest intentionally engineers what happens next. They create a dedicated welcome page, not a home page, not a bio page, not a link tree. A page built specifically for the audience, specifically for the show they appeared on. The page continues the conversation. It references what was discussed. It offers genuinely useful resources to that specific audience. It makes this next step obvious and easy. Barbara Turley didn't need more interviews. She needed one physician-focused interview, built with the precision, with a welcome page that continued that conversation to an offer designed for that community. Craig Cody, he didn't need new content. He needed a new context. Here's another action item. Before your next podcast appearance, build a dedicated welcome page for that show's audience. Reference the conversation. Offer specific resources relevant to that community. Give them a next step. Make it clear. Then measure what happens. Move 4. The 3 yes ladder. Not every listener is ready to buy. Most are not. The mistake is offering only one path. The big yes or nothing at all. Making it a take it or leave it, it destroys trust. The 3 yes ladder give every listener 3 ways to engage, calibrated to where they are in the relationships with you. The small yes, the quick win. Now, this could be a quick win resource, a checklist, a guide, a framework they can use immediately. Low commitment, high relevance. It demonstrates your thinking without asking for anything significant. The medium yes, that deeper dive. This is deeper proof of your expertise. Could be a case study, a book, a short course, a deeper guide. More commitment, more value for the listeners who found the episode compelling and want to go further. The heck yes, the real conversation. A discovery call, a consultation, a first product for the listener who is ready. When they hear you and arrive with credit card in hand, ready to buy, don't slow them down in a funnel. The ladder, it doesn't pressure anyone. It simply makes the path clear for people who are already moving in your direction. The playbook in one sentence. Show up in the right context. Demonstrate how you think. Make the next step easy. And give every level of interested listener a clear path forward. Conclusion. Your difference matters more than ever. We're living through the most interesting and difficult time in history to build a thought leadership business. Interesting because the tools available to distribute ideas, to reach audiences, to build credibility at scale, they're unprecedented. The barriers that once protected mediocre experts from real competition, they've fallen. The floor has risen. It's difficult for the exact same reasons. In a world where anyone can publish and at scale, the question is no longer whether you have something to say. It's whether you have something worth hearing and whether the right people hear it in the right context. Creator Capitalist is right. The most valuable thing you can offer in this environment is not your knowledge. It's your difference, your perspective, your reframe, the specific way you see the problem that your ideal client has been trying to solve. The difference does not emerge from a megaphone. It does not reach the right people by broadcasting to everyone. It compounds quietly, consistently, and powerfully through conversations, through strategic podcast interviews that put you in the right context, in the right conversation, with the right next step for the right listener. You are one conversation away. The question is not whether you have something to say. It's whether the right people are in the room when you say it. This is the shift from megaphone to magnet. This is the how. Stay strong. The world needs to hear you now more than ever. So there you have it. From megaphone to magnet, the how for creator capitalists. If something in there hit you, here's the one thing I asked. Tell me what you thought of this format. Just go ahead and send me an email at tom@interviewvalet, leave a review, or send me a DM on LinkedIn, whatever's easiest for you. If these monthly solo drops are valuable, I'll keep them going. If not, tell me that too. And remember, the world doesn't need more noise. Stop being the megaphone. Stop trying to turn it to 11. It's time to start attracting the clients you actually want. Use podcast interview marketing as the magnet that pulls in your super consumers and the profits they bring with them. This is Tom Schwab. Go be a magnet.